We are Chattanooga Developers.f, and this is our weekly lunch talk. So we do this every Thursday at noon. Come out and get lunch and hang out with us and talk about technology and all sorts of stuff surrounding it. Just to get started, I want to really thank our partners, Open Table, and our sponsors, Lamppost Group, Harvard, EPB, Co-op, Society of Work, and University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. They are the ones who make all this available for all of us so that we can keep giving you free lunch every week. So definitely go say thanks to them. And I'm pretty sure they're all hiring, so if you want a job, you can talk to them about that. I'm sure they'd like to talk to you about it. So we also want to plug all of our other groups. So you want to get involved, there's plenty of other things to do. You can go to Hack Nights or go to other language-specific meetups. And if you want to get involved, come and talk to me, and we can help you get set up on our GitHub board where all this code is open source. And you can discuss all the things going on in the community, or if you can come join us on IRC, we chat in there pretty much all day. It tends to be fairly lively, actually, which is surprising for a local user. And finally, if you would be so kind as to go to this URL, which I don't even know how we got get.io/vote. It's awesome.
That's amazing.
If you would go there and tell us how we did on lunch today, that would be really good. Because we love to do good work, and we want to make sure that we get lunch that's good for everybody. And it's really fun. If you can go, just click on this link, go here. I thought today was actually pretty good. And now you can get your lunch, and you can see. So and that'd be really awesome if you guys could go out and vote for lunch. It also helps us keep track of how many people are showing up. Full transparency. Oh no? Can we break it?
Yeah, everyone just likes it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Cool. Excellent. Awesome. Well, I'm not going to take up too much more time. I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker today. Our speaker is going to be Ben Schnell. We actually worked with Ben previously. And we got to watch him do a whole bunch of research into this topic today, so I'm really excited to hear him speak on it. I think it's something that we don't think about probably enough, and so it'd be good to get some extra perspective. So, Ben, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Hold your applause. I know it's exciting. Where's my... Oh, other screen. That way? Oh, yeah? Got it. I need to mute this so I can hear myself. Okay. Thanks so much for coming out, braving the cold weather, almost certain death, to make it here today for this talk. There's nothing more dangerous, it turns out, it seems like, in Chattanooga than the threat of snow. So I'm glad that you've made it here so far. So yeah, my name is Ben. I work at Lamppost Group. And I have looked into a few things about candidate-centered recruiting, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a few things that I've learned. So we'll get right into it. What is candidate-centered recruiting? When your company expands beyond your friend group, recruiting in a competitive environment requires a new mentality and a new set of skills. So at Lamppost Group, we work mostly with startup companies. So if you're at a big enterprise, some of this will apply, and some of it will be more startup-specific. Talent-centric means the company would invest as much money, time, and resources and talent designing their career website and writing compelling job descriptions as it does in advertising and marketing its products. This is a really rare philosophy out there, I feel like. With recruiting, mostly people I feel like, underestimate the importance of hiring the right people, or how much work and how much intentionality it takes to hire the right people. And I'm here talking about it with you today because you may sometimes sit there and wonder how the person next to you arrived at your company and how that process went, and maybe how that process could go better or should go. So that's what you may be thinking to yourself, we're developers, but we're not HR, so why I talk on recruiting? Here's some things why you should care about who joins your team. The people you work with make probably the biggest difference in your job satisfaction, and you can actually play a crucial role in the process of hiring the right person. The people that are interviewing, if they can meet the team, and if you ever play a role in hiring and interviewing, it's really important to understand a few of these principles. If you're not currently a CTO, our hiring manager, you may take that role soon. So raise your hand here actually if you've been involved in a hiring process at your company in some way, whether interviewing or, yeah, so about 50%. So a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you today comes from this book, Hire With Your Head. You may have read it. Lou Adler is probably the premier expert on recruiting and sort of HR. And so most of the things, not all of the things, some of it comes from our experience at Lamppost Group, but a lot of the principles in this talk come from that book. So I would encourage you to read it if you want to get some more information. So first of all, the problem is that on average, companies have a 57% success rate in hiring the right person. That's slightly better than flipping a coin. So obviously that's really terrible. And so it really shouldn't be that hard to do better than 57%. I guess the statistic includes all sorts of companies, maybe not just companies like yours, and maybe also it includes sort of like fast food companies and hiring people that have jobs that have a lot of turnover. But still, I think even in our companies, there's always room for improvement, and 57 is definitely the bottom. So I think generally the primary problem is not prioritizing hiring the right people, and it's, in my opinion, it's the most important thing a company can do. Raise your hand if you agree with that statement, that hiring the right people is the most important thing your company can do. We have a few. Maybe if you didn't raise your hand, you might put it at 2 or 3. Either way, you're going to find it a really important thing for your company is that it's going to be hiring the right people is really important. Excellent hiring involves close collaboration between recruiters and hiring managers. The hiring managers know about the job and what it will take for the person to be successful. The recruiter has been researching best practices and knows the best way to attract and engage great candidates. Since the hiring manager has to make the final decision, they need to be involved with the process from the start to finish. The likelihood of finding the best candidate decreases if the hiring manager completely delegates the process to the recruiter and steps away, only stepping in to say yes or no. Why is that? Because to be able to make an informed decision, the candidate has to interact with someone at the company that they'll be working with, and then the earlier in the process that happens, the more engaged the candidate is in the process. So that might be sort of obvious, but some hiring managers want to wait to the very last second to sort of get involved and wait to you have like 2 candidates. But when the recruiter finds a really, really great candidate, it requires that the hiring manager move quickly. And to attract that candidate, the sooner the candidate can get on a phone call with a hiring manager, the better they're going to be engaged with the process. Maybe you've experienced that if you've been in a job search yourself as developers, and you're talking to maybe sometimes third-party recruiters or corporate recruiters like myself or other people that are trying to help you with the job. It's really great for you to be able to talk to someone who knows what's actually going on in the job so that you can decide whether or not it's going to be a great fit for you. So if you're in that position of a hiring manager, that's good to keep in mind. So we're going to do a quick overview of some of the candidates that are out there that you'll encounter, sort of like categorizing them and understanding them. The biggest pool of candidates in general of all career types are very active candidates. These people are unemployed or severely underemployed, wanting new work. The best candidates, though, generally are underrepresented in this pool. There are some amazing, talented people that are actively seeking jobs, but generally, if, like yourselves, great, talented developers, you're getting offers for jobs all the time, so the time you spend between jobs is going to be very short, and so generally, you're not going to be the type of person that's actively seeking for a job. Semi-active, there's people who are, they have a job, but they are open to other ideas and not really thrilled with their current situation. Semi-passive, this is the primary category where you'll find really talented people. These are people who are enjoying their job, and they like it fine, but they're generally open to an opportunity if something better comes along. I would venture to guess that probably most of us in the room find ourselves in the semi-passive place. It's just sort of like, yeah, we like our job, but if something really awesome comes about, we would consider it. And then this last category is the shrinking category of candidates. There's less and less of people that are just like not willing to consider a possibility at all. They're just so happy in their job. They definitely do exist. Okay, so here's what, between the different types of levels of candidates that you'll interact with makes a big difference of where the hiring mistakes happen. Let me explain. So level 1, you have someone that's obviously not a great fit. It's just easy to say, no, sorry, thanks for applying, but you're not a great fit for us. Level 2 is someone who has they went to the right schools, they have all the capabilities and experience, but they're not motivated, they don't care, and they're not going to actually do the work, even though maybe they are capable of it. And then level 3, someone who's competent, can do almost all of the things that are listed in your job description, and are motivated to do the work. Level 4 is just someone who's going to definitely knock it out of the park, has proved that at other companies. And level 5 is that you would just dream about getting in your company, and you're ready to move quickly and hire that person really fast. The biggest mistakes, the 57% that's success, the other 43% that's failure, is generally a problem of recognizing the difference between a level 2 and a level 3. Basically, if you find someone, yeah, they have all the requisite skills, they have the necessary experience, but come to find out, once you hire them, they're not really motivated and they're going to do a terrible job. That's hard to tell sometimes because they could be a great interviewer, they could really impress you in the interview, but then what you're really looking for, level 3 is a great hire. It's someone who's competent, will do all the great work, is motivated, but sometimes the biggest mistakes happen between level 2 and level 3. Okay, so one thing that we can actually do in hiring to make a huge difference to hire better candidates is better job descriptions. 99% of job descriptions out there in the world absolutely suck. And the reason why is the philosophy behind job descriptions primarily is to filter out bad candidates. That is a terrible job description philosophy, because what it does is it also filters out a lot of really, really great talent. See, the problem is writing your job descriptions to filter out unqualified candidates is almost like a salesman spending all of their time trying to convince people who can't afford a product not to try to buy it, instead of spending their time finding great customers who want to buy a product. Because basically in a competitive market, we're treating as if candidates are all wanting our position, and that there's like there's extra supply in the market of labor. But of course with developers, that's not true. There's like a low supply of great talent. And so to find a great person for the position, you have to treat them like a customer and write a job description that attracts the best type of talent. So instead of filtering out unqualified talent. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about job descriptions. Like we said, most job descriptions eliminate top performers. It's akin to advertising the technical specifications for a consumer product, expecting people to buy it. Most job descriptions are too long, not engaging, don't excite, and are very forgettable. So instead, if you want to hire superior people, first define superior performance. Describe success and not skills. And the key to writing a great job description is converting having to doing. In other words, converting what you would say is like you need to have this amount of experience, convert that to what they'll be doing in the job that requires that experience. Does that make sense? So a great job description actually describes what the person will be doing on the job. Most job descriptions are actually candidate descriptions. They describe sort of like the candidate needs to X, Y, Z and all these requirements, which is actually like the first joy kill. If you guys are out looking for jobs hypothetically and you come across job descriptions that start by you need to have X, Y, and Z, it's probably going to turn you off really quickly, especially if you have a job and you're not super sure you want to move to something else. The only way you're going to possibly move to something else is if you get really excited about the job description because you can imagine yourself doing that job because the job description describes actually what you'd be doing. So the way to build a job description like that is to have 6 to 8 specific objectives that are required to be successful in the job and write the job description around that. So here's an example. Instead of writing, we need you to have a BS degree or an MBA as a plus. Something like upgrade the product marketing and new product launch process. For someone to be able to do that excellently, they probably need to have some great business experience, and maybe not necessarily school, but maybe a business degree. So changing from having to doing is a huge important thing for the job description. Instead of 5 years of experience, develop new online and direct distribution channels. Instead of strong market research, prepare a comprehensive analysis report in the first month. The way that's helpful is that in your interviewing process, you can actually ask if they've done something like that before. Because you may get a lot of applicants that say, like, sure, I can prepare a comprehensive analysis report in the first month. That sounds like no problem. So you may get applicants who actually are not qualified to do the thing that are in your job description. That might be a little bit annoying to have applicants that are coming through that aren't actually qualified, but it's worth it. Because you also get more qualified candidates who are like, yes, I can do that. And then in the interview, you say, what's your most significant accomplishment in relationship to preparing a comprehensive analysis report? And then they can give you examples of things they've done in the past that fulfill that. And then you can know whether or not that's actually true based on following up with their references and listening to their stories and stuff like that. So instead of a job description, a performance profile describes what they'll actually be doing on the job. It increases your sourcing. You get better candidates. It helps your candidates visualize the job. It avoids the mistake of weeding out people with less experience but more aptitude or motivation, and guides the interview process. Have they demonstrated the abilities required in real-life examples? And so, like I said, a candidate can have all the experience, credentials, and competence and still be an unmotivated candidate. So next we'll talk about the best practices for navigating recruiters to help you find developers to join your team. Another thing that can really help us hire better people is to have better communication with our recruiters. So you may have a corporate recruiter, or you may work with a third-party recruiter sometimes to hire the right people, but increased better communication between those team members can actually improve the hiring process dramatically. So the first problem is there's often different criteria between what the hiring manager is looking for and the recruiter is looking for. The recruiter is looking for someone that fulfills, basically, they have the experience necessary. But the hiring manager is looking for all sorts of things that are different than that. In addition to that, culture fit, and a lot of aspects that the recruiter can't actually even know. They don't even know so much of the intimate details of the culture and how it works at the company. And so there may be answers to those questions that the recruiter cannot even answer. So the recruiter brings a lot of candidates that meet a specific criteria of experience, and then the hiring manager has to sort of get involved in the process to know whether or not it's a good culture fit. And if you're trying to attract a great candidate, if the earlier the hiring manager gets involved, the more likely that you're going to be able to recruit that excellent candidate. You maybe yourselves have been frustrated if you've been in talks with recruiters about a job and you haven't actually been able to talk to someone at the company for a while. It's really frustrating. So this is how we do it at Lamppost Group. This may be different for your company, but this is how we kind of separate roles for the recruiter and the hiring manager. So basically, we advise on the job description process, like, here's some great ways to make an awesome job description, but the actual hiring manager probably needs to be able to describe their company and about their culture and write the job description and define that superior success. Then we create a collaboration doc. Basically, it's a Google Doc that lists all the candidates that we have found for the position, so that people who are, the hiring manager doesn't have to search through their email to find candidates that we've sent them. It's all in one localized place. We create a landing page for every single job that we're hiring for, so that when we're doing outreach, we're sending emails to people who would be in the field who would be great, and we say, hey, why don't you check out this position, and they land on a great landing page that describes the position and tells a story, and then can link also to the company. So that's something we do. We advertise on job boards, and we do outreach, and we also do the first round vetting. It's necessary, obviously, for the hiring manager not to talk to a ton of candidates that are obviously unqualified. So we do first round vetting and make sure that people that are passed on or at least have some basic criteria that they fill, and then the hiring manager can take it from there. So one thing that's optional that's been really helpful, in one case, a company gave me actually a bin at their company email address. So when I was doing outreach, because we work in a family of companies, when I'm doing outreach, I'm actually reaching out from the company, which is a lot more effective than from another email address. People say, wow, this is directly coming from the company, which is really nice. So, and then obviously the hiring manager reviews and interviews candidates, and something that's really important is if there is like a level 4, level 5 candidate, it's really important, even though the hiring manager, you yourself may be doing a lot of development, you may be doing coding on top of your hiring processes, but if you can, if the recruiter says this is an awesome candidate, you have to move fast. If you're actually interested in hiring someone that's really talented, there are times you have to sort of like, even if you're doing other things, you have to take a pause and move fast with really excellent candidates. It can make a big difference. So the next step is to talk about how to do better interviewing and closing of candidates. So Lou Adler, in the book Hire With Your Head, makes a big emphasis on the MSA question, which is the most significant accomplishment question. This interviewing philosophy ties directly with the performance profile, because what you're doing is you're taking the 6 to 8 major objectives that a person would need to have to be successful in the job, and you're interviewing against those. So you're saying, what have you done in your career that you feel really proud of, a big accomplishment that relates to one of the 6 to 8 objectives that we have for this job. And then you can get more and more details about those, that experience, and you can ask team members of those companies how that went, and it's the best way to compare. Because what happens a lot of times with interviewing is you decide within the first 30 minutes whether or not you want to hire this person, whether or not you're impressed with them. And that's actually a big problem, because there's some people who are great at interviewing who make bad employees, and vice versa. People who are terrible at interviewing who might be your best employee that you've ever had. So spending time to actually look for the evidence instead of making a quick judgment is really the essence of hiring with your head, and can make a really big difference between hiring level 2 and level 3, level 4. So then after you've sort of really done a lot of diligence into several MSA questions related to your performance objectives, then you can give them tasks to work on. In our case, it's probably mostly coding tasks to demonstrate their competence. This is a really great way to do the interviewing process. And then after interviewing, how to close a really, really great candidate is really important. You can have several people in play, and then they also have offers maybe for more money from other companies in San Francisco and New York and Boston. They probably can offer more money generally than our companies can. So how do we close a great candidate that is getting offers from lots of other companies? Well, here's the next couple slides are going to be about that. First of all, you can think about in the metaphor of driving in a car and where you're going to seat the candidate. And the first step, obviously, they're in the driver's seat. They have a great landing page that they can see the job at. They can review the job description. The job description is exciting, and the process with the interviewer is really great. They're in the driver's seat. But then you want to put them in the passenger seat. You want to start driving after they're interested in the job and they've kind of bit. And what that means is creating challenge questions and an opportunity gap. An example of an opportunity gap is saying, we see that you have great Ruby experience. We're kind of concerned that maybe your front-end experience isn't quite up to par. We want to keep looking into that and talking about that. What that does is that the recruiters are, the candidates already invested, and if they feel like now they have something to prove, now it's up to them to prove to the hiring manager that they're the right person for the job. And it's really important to create that opportunity gap so that they feel invested in, like, I have to prove to them that I want this job. Putting them in the passenger seat. And then we're going to talk a lot about the offer and putting the candidate in the back seat, which is not actually making an official offer until every single aspect of the offer is already negotiated. As soon as the offer is made, honest communication and open conversation ends. And it's like hardline negotiating at that point, and it becomes all about compensation, which is not the best thing. You don't want people to join your company just because of the compensation. It can be a part of it, but you want them to join the company because it's an exciting opportunity, and they may not make as much at your company, the awesome company you work for, as they might, say, in San Francisco or somewhere else. So why do candidates take jobs? Some candidates are going away. They're leaving a bad situation. They're usually easier to recruit, but you have to move fast. Or they're going toward. They have a great job, but they have been presented with a much better opportunity. And that's generally the case that we are trying to present people with a better opportunity. And that opportunity comes in the form of an employee value proposition. A 30-plus solution that Lou Adler recommends is the job has to be 30% better than the job they're coming from for someone who enjoys their job to move to your company. And what that means is that plus doesn't all have to come through compensation. You don't want to make it all about compensation because there's always a company that can pay more. You want to make it about job stretch, which job stretch is bigger challenges, bigger career, like better things for the resume, things that they haven't really done before that they can learn, and job growth, which is opportunity for advancement in the company. So those can be the primary ways that you offer 30% better than their company they're at currently. And then also the plus part of it is, and also a little bit of increase in money. And the plus part of it is the team's total involvement. So this is where you come in and make a crucial difference in the hiring process. Because if the team is involved in relating with the candidate and meeting the candidate over Skype or in person and sort of like evaluating for culture fit, if the team and the hiring manager are really involved, that can make the biggest difference in attracting a great candidate. So like we talked about, in closing an offer, never make a formal offer until every aspect of the offer has been tested and agreed upon beforehand. Compensation shouldn't be the main reason a person takes your job. You'll never be able to build a great team that way. So you start with job fit and job growth, and you'll be able to make the financial consideration a secondary component of the offer. So like I said, you don't want to make the final offer until all the things are negotiated. A good way to do that is this quote here. We're thinking of putting an offer together for you, but we'd like to know your thoughts now about the job, sort of see what hesitations they may have. That helps keep supply and demand in play so that they know that there may be still other candidates possibly in waiting to be hired by the company for the position. So you want to test all the components of the offer using a question like this. As a part of the final offer, we're considering a relocation package that consists of blank. And you can take that for every single aspect of the negotiation. You can say, we're considering as a final offer to offer this. Does that sound okay? If there's any hesitation there, you want to ask questions about that and figure out where the hesitation is before you actually make the final offer. Because when the offer is made, they know they're the main candidate, and the honest communication stops at that point. So hesitation on any item, you probe more on that, and you don't want to move forward beyond here unless you've addressed and tried to find a win-win solution to any hesitations they may have about that. So we talked about the 30-plus solution, job stretch, job growth, and the compensation. That's an overview of closing candidates. So if you're involved in hiring, just as a review, some of the things that can really make a big difference is really being intentional about your job descriptions and making them to attract great talent instead of filtering out bad talent. That's a really bad philosophy for job descriptions. Better communication with your HR team, being involved to move fast when there's a level 5 candidate and be in communication about that. And then also better interviewing and closing, remembering the fact that there can be people who can interview amazingly well who would be terrible employees and vice versa. People who are terrible at interviewing but actually would be the type of person that you've been hoping for to fill that position. Just as this is a quote kind of sums it up for me, being talent-centric means a company would invest as much time, resources, and money as they do in building a career website and a job description as they do advertising and marketing its products. So that's me on Twitter, and I'm recruiting at Lamppost Group. And now we can take any questions you may have about your hiring processes or anything, or any comments if you have any.
The thing I was struck by that is like the parallel between the technical world where the premature optimization and like reducing edge cases with the negative job descriptions. Like we do that all. I mean, we try not to do that all the time across the entire technical world as well. It's interesting that it's kind of the same problem of messing up your entire mission to save two edge cases that you happen to run into.
Yeah, exactly. Something we've noticed, we get more applicants that aren't qualified to some of the jobs because we have a really exciting job description. And that might be a little bit annoying. It's really worth it to find the people to attract other hired, more talented people.
The other thing, and I've always been a big proponent of not putting too much weight on how someone interviews. I've made some good hires that way. But what's the tells for that? Like if you're in an interview and you're like, oh my God, this guy is disastrous. But what is that but that makes you want to follow up and try to see if there's something more there?
Yeah, the but, like that's follow up, comes from when when you hear from their experience, you're asking them questions related to your job description, your performance profile, the things that they'll need to do to be successful, and you see that they're actually describing some things that they've done in a former job that seem to be really similar to that, even if they're not very articulate in that process of describing that. And then following up on that and asking, okay, who was on your team, and what did you do? And if they're really specific, that's a really good sign. And to follow up with their team members to see sort of like, was that true, what they said? Another really important thing in regards to the interviewing against the job description is that you also do performance reviews against the job description. Have you guys ever had a job where you feel like your work that you're doing is actually nothing related to the job description that was just like put on the thing? That can happen sometimes, but if you're actually doing performance reviews based on the job description that you were given when you were hired, then it's just like a continuous process, like from the first time they see the job to interviewing to actually on the job getting a review.
All the individual components just kind of seem logical, but I've never been through a hiring process like that, right?
It's actually super rare. I mean, some of it seems super obvious, but I've been seeing that it's not always implemented like this. Yes?
One of the things I noticed early on, where you're taking instead of doing the requirements, doing a description about the job itself. And the phrases on there, I'm reminded of a couple of times in the past when I've given my resume to someone who's been around longer than I have, has done more interviews, and like, hey, what can I do to improve it? That's like one of the first things they tell me about my resume. It's like, yeah, throw your skills down at the bottom, those are important, but you want to describe what you did at the jobs. And it's like, now, the flip side, it's almost the same way, but it's never been. Like every job position I look at, it's like, need a web developer who knows Ruby.
Yeah.
Need someone that knows, System 5 and scripts. Whatever, .NET. We use DCOM here. Somebody knows DCOM.
Right.
Something crazy like it. So it's like, wait, there's a similarity here. That seems kind of cool because if I saw a job description that had what I was going to be doing, that would be more interesting. And then of course I'd want to know about the technologies to make sure that. Oh yeah, I have a little Ruby on Rails experience. Do I think I can do this? What's our spec? So on and so forth. And maybe find out, am I a good fit? Is this a junior position that I'm going to grow and then be promoted in a year? all those kinds of questions, but the thing that would get my attention would definitely be a better description than web developer.
Right, exactly. And you've been in the place where you've asked, how can I improve my resume? But when we're in a job market where there's more developers than there are jobs available, we need to be asking, how can we improve our job description?
Yeah.
And instead of the other way around, because we know that there's a lot of great talented people out there, but not enough jobs for them. So like when we're attracting people, we need to be asking, how could have our job description attracted you more? Instead of how could your resume been better? Yeah.
A lot of people say you got to monitor your social media when you're looking for a job, be it your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever, your LinkedIn. Do you look at GitHub a lot?
I do. I spend a lot of time on GitHub.
What do you look for particularly on GitHub?
Really similar to like what the person has been doing, what sort of projects they've been working on. Especially for our startup culture, we really love to see people who are working on projects that are just for fun too. It shows you have a passion for code. So even if it's not something that's related directly to what our job is, if you just like are putting stuff up that is an awesome project for fun, that's actually a really great sign that we're kind of want to pursue that candidate. That's GitHub specific. I don't spend a lot of time reviewing like people's like personal social media accounts unless there's something so dramatic, so dramatically racist or sexist or et cetera on there that we sort of like need to filter on based on those. But someone like with a beer at a party isn't going to be like, oh, a big deal for us. So.
Going back to interviewing, we talked a little bit about like that sort of like asking them their biggest achievement, drilling into that, using that as a real measure of how they've done. When it comes to the technical, what's that look like, and how can because I think there's probably several of us here. I know I've done it. Where I've walked out and kind of look at these like write XYZ data structure again and do this algorithm. It's 5 hours long. So what can we do to make technical use better as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's really the biggest answer to that, I think, is really getting the hiring manager involved really intimately in that process of technical reviewing, because I think that the temptation, the easy thing for us to do is like send out like a carbon sort of like coding test, and it may not actually relate to the job. It's just sort of like to test your skills, and that can be okay if it's not going to take you a long time or like going to be super annoying. But what's better is if the hiring manager actually crafts a specific coding sort of challenge or or even a technical interview in person that relates directly to the job, and so they can talk through and like why it relates to the job, so that you as a candidate, when you're sort of doing a coding challenge, it has something to do with what you'll be doing in the job, and not just sort of like a random thing that's going to take you a long time and you may still not even end up doing the job. So the hard part about that is the hiring manager like have enough margin in their time to actually craft something specific for their candidates they're looking at, and it can be hard based on how much time you have in your schedule. But for the best practices and the best sort of like ideal situation is when the hiring manager really crafts something specific related to the job.
One of the things that it seems like the overall philosophy is, or one of the core concepts is that you really need to hire for a specific job. You need to know what the requirements are or like what they'll be doing and hire for that, and also do performance reviews on that. If you're trying to hire for flexibility, because sometimes if you want someone who can be flexible in their job, you don't know what they're going to be doing. Is he saying that, or are you saying that that's something you shouldn't do, or is there a way to kind of fit that into this framework?
That's a really great question. There is a way to fit it in the framework. Basically, if you don't know, sort of like an example is like someone needs to hire a top person to run a certain type of accelerator, and they've never run that type of accelerator before, then basically the part of the job description is like figure out and report back within a certain amount of time how to run an accelerator. That's like their first task, is to figure out that for you and report it back. So if there's a lot of flexibility, then that's included in the job description. As part of how to be successful is to determine within a certain amount of time what you'll actually be doing and report to us, and so we can talk about that. So basically, whatever sort of ambiguity there exists in the job, you have them figure out as that position and make that part of the job description. That obviously can't work in all situations, but hopefully you know at least something about what they'll be doing. I guess maybe in your case, I might be working on lots of different technologies, there's different products. So the best way to say that in a job description would be like ability to sort of take on and learn and lots of different technologies. And
it kind of gets back to that MSA question though, right? Like
exactly.
You can tell a lot from that MSA how they talk about the fact that they knew these very core technical things, or they talk about generally how they approach the problem. Because specifically for you guys, you need to do a lot of problem solving, and you need to be able to flexibly kind of, you know, take it whatever technical domain the problem is, you need to be able to dive into it. So I think that MSA really is.
Yeah, someone who's worked in a lot of different technology or proven in a certain job experience that they've taken something they didn't understand and quickly solved a problem for a customer, even though they didn't start out knowing what it was about. That's a good, yeah, you're right. That's a good way to describe it.
Interesting because a lot of times you really want to ask, like, what's your most significant achievement for in a specific domain, though? So how do you ask a question that is framed correctly for, like what's the cool, what cool stuff are you working on? Like, that's a question I like lead out with a lot. Is like, just tell me about like what you're hacking with, and that's a good way to try to find like, but it's a good way to try to find like difference, but it doesn't tell you, it doesn't help you drill down into like the real nitty-gritty. So I don't know, maybe there's a way to frame that question for generalists.
Well, I'm saying whatever the question specifically is about, just the language they use to respond to it can kind of tell you a little bit about whether they're a generalist approach or a domain expert approach, which I think is kind of I don't know, that's the kind of contrasting thing that I see.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any other thoughts? Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I guess we'll give it a